delete and create so those endpoints in the Staccato code base are working. The one thing I think we wanted to bring up that's a little different, or something I think is worth talking about, is that when you're sending multiple items to be ingested into a catalog, there are a couple different ways to do it. Right? You can do a collection, you can do just a simple array, or one of the things that we've supported and that I'm a big fan of is just streaming multiple items in a body that if you take the body as a whole, it's actually not a valid document, but it's like JSON-LD or something where you could actually just keep dropping items into that stream. And so we actually support that in the working code. I don't know if anybody wants to see Postman go back and forth. It's not really impressive, but it does work. And I think there's a potential for us, especially some of the use cases we were talking about with Harris, with large amounts of inserts, 5,000, 10,000 at a time. I think batch and bulk insert are great. I think ideally from an architectural view, you want to get to a streaming or async type operation. So I think that's something that if we want to continue to explore bulk operations, that's something we probably need to look at. But I would strongly recommend we look at the types of ways that we could encode multiple items that we're sending up, just because I think that's going to be just on the server side. If you're waiting, if you're waiting to read a big envelope and they have a whole document, it's going to be a big memory overhead. If you're just operating on things as they come through, that's going to be a lot more efficient server side. And a more reactive architecture. That can be really good from a technology point of view. So we have a lot of work to do writing up this, the output of this, and then I think we do have a pull request in for some of the spec, and then we need to get code and examples posted as examples that aren't quite done yet. But that's that. I don't think there's
we have a pull request that specifies all this in the CRUD extension API for STAC. And we also have an issue open on OGC where we specific places where we don't exactly align with them. There's two of them. One is patching a single item. I'm sorry.
We can go ahead already.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Am I on the list too?
Yeah.
Everybody's on the list. All right.
I'll wait by
we can also have you go next. Yeah. Come on. I think.
That's pretty much all I have.
Before we do this, is there anybody else that is leaving early, either remote or in person? So we're sure to get to you now. Yeah.
10 minutes.
Yeah, you come up after that. Yeah.
Chris, can I ask a question about this before we move on? What's on the screen? So is the intent, Tom, got convergence with WFS eventually? Yeah. So that stack path is going to go away, and the path would be post collections, collection ID.
Yeah, that's the path, I believe, should be collections.
Yeah.
That's actually just an artifact from, I copied this from the code. So that's where the context root of is.
All right. So I think we'll just keep it up to.
Well, keep it in the two. So had a great time. Taking part in some of the discussions. Versioning was really interesting. That's definitely an issue that we got at Maxar. Kind of like provenance back to source content. So it's a that. And then good discussion yesterday on the use of different extensions too, and the STAC extension, and how those are referring, and spent some time working on the beginnings of a Python client for our catalog API that is right now in our enterprise GitHub, but hope to be out there on public GitHub later. Yeah, that's what we're working on. But, yeah, thanks for having me, and it's exciting to see the progress and excited to see P1 release. Sure.
Here should be a link to. Oh, no. Go to my OpenPR. Sorry. Code bases.
Concept.
Yes. There it is. Yeah, it's a lot. This is just following up on what Tom said. This is the open PR that expresses all the consensus that we came up with in our meeting on the first day. And then it's basically everything Tom described. And when I opened that PR, the first two comments were, which is how does this align with OGC's initial notes, what they call on what they're looking forward to for transactions. And there's two main issues there. One is that 2 sprints ago, this group decided when you're patching a single item, we're going to use the JSON merge spec, which is basically you take a fragment of JSON and you merge it into the existing JSON to change it. The WFS initial notes go with the JSON patch specification, which basically is a list of instructions for how to change the document. It's way more complicated, but it's also way more powerful, and it's easier to roll back. But the good news is that, like Peter said before he left, they can both coexist, and especially since these OGC folks are already contemplating separating simple from complex transactions. So we're kind of just staying on the simple side, where if there's no sequential rollback and we use the simple JSON merge spec. And that way we can align with them. And then the other, there were 2 issues. Oh yeah, and we already got another good comment there that at least one person on that side believes that's the way to go. And then there was question 2. I'm losing my place. Sorry. So whether we use merge or patch for HTTP patch was the first question, and then the second one was we want to add some bulk post and delete to the items endpoint. And when I talked with Peter about that, he was totally open to that as well, because it doesn't affect their transactions endpoint that they envision for doing all their complex transactions. So it's looking like we can get what we want, and we can align it with exactly what OGC wants.
A quick comment on the transaction side. There was a optimistic locking thing that existed previously, and it sounds like we're trying to move that off to the version extension.
Yeah, one thing that came out of that is the way that the STAC read when this conference started was put and delete required in the tag, and patch was optional. Now it's optional everywhere. It's just whether the vendor if that really is a stack item version number, we punted on all that, and made it optional in the transaction spec because it's defined how versioning happens is defined very clearly as version spec. Separated concern there. Clear?
Cool, so I'm just gonna start to go through this in time for the 5-year first. And then I think you can talk through all your things, you don't have to wait till I get to later into the document.
So the first one is a very stack-specific one, which is basically just removing our stack-specific endpoints in the API and replacing them with more OAS-compliant ones. So the first one is /stack, which was actually an entry point for the API, and that is now merged with /, which is a landing page for OAS as well. So it's basically adding some additional fields, and then you can explore from there the additional collections that are there in the items. And then there is /stack/search, which we discussed with OAS and agreed to have /search, which is at the moment only a rename of /stack/search, and has the same query parameters as before. And if OAS query evolves, we will likely change that to align with them. But for now, it's /search here, and it's the same semantics than before, just removing the tag from the endpoint name.
The idea is we're gonna make /search a proposal for
Selection search, and that should work across stack and across OAS. And then I've got another DR started that is about adding an extension to core stack, which adds a field called version and a field called duplicated, so that you can add a version number to items and collections, and can flag the collection or item as duplicated, which should align with the extensions that Ayuso wrote for the API. We're still discussing on that, but someone will agree. So exactly, and that removes collection also from that removes the version field from collection, making it a bit slider.
Awesome. This is you, Matt.
Just context search. Oh, yeah, metadata.
Talk about all your stuff.
Okay, so we had a search metadata object in the response to describe fields like the number matched, the number returned, the page number that you were on, or the limit that you had specified, or the default limit. And we renamed that. We wanted something better than search : metadata. We wanted something more explicit that didn't have colons, so that we could make a request to OAF or Commons API. And so we changed that to context. At the same time, so this is an extension, so the response would include this object showing the returned, matched, and the limit. Down the road, it could potentially include other search-related metadata. But in OAF version 1, we have those fields at the top level. They're not embedded within an object. They're number returned, number matched, and limit. So there is some redundant information. If you implement this extension, you'll have those things both in the object and at the top level. The hope here is to convince OGC API folks to put this into an object instead. There's real value in having all that stuff contained in a single object, because if you save those results, and you could more easily filter that out, or you could more easily put in your own search-related metadata into an object. It's clear what that is, rather than having a field at the top level. That's it for that. If you go down to extensions, Other people will talk about the aerial version extension, item extension, daytime rate. If you go to the SAT extension, so there's been a, did that not work? I was just waiting. So, and then if you, probably the best thing to do is go to the branch. So this arose, there's a few different issues because we have an EO extension and we have a SAR extension, and there's also, I suppose you have a point cloud that's taken from a satellite. There was common extensions between these, common fields between these that we wanted to pull out and make common. And so, like platform, constellation, when we initially talked about it, we were just talking about platform, constellation, and instrument. However, as I was going through, realized there really was a whole bunch of other variables that really are very specific to satellites. Some of them were in SAR and not in EO. Some of them were in EO and not in SAR. And so it made sense really to put anything having to do with viewing geometry from a satellite into a single extension rather than leaving them somewhere else. They're optional fields. So we've got platform instruments is now an array because you can have an item that contains data from multiple instruments, such as with Landsat, you have the TIERS instrument and the OLI instrument, and they're distributed together. Off-nadir and incidence angle are actually related. This is a work in progress, so don't know if it really does make sense to include both of those. In SAR, incidence angle is more common. In EO, off-nadir is more common, but it's just the sum of them is 90 degrees, maybe. Azimuth angle isn't really used in SAR, but that's okay, you can leave it out. And of course, the sun angles are not, you wouldn't use in SAR, but again, they're optional. Absolute orbit is probably going to be dropped because I can't find a use case for why anybody would want that. Relative orbit is actually used quite a bit in SAR for interferometry to determine which data sets are compatible, and path direction is often used in all of them. Also, even in Sentinel-2, relative orbit is specified in the file name. So people do tend to like that, and they might search on it. So this is very much a work in progress. I have a few questions out to some SAR people to get some opinions on some of this. And if you actually now go back, I don't think I didn't pull it out yet, but if you go to, if you go to the EO extension, I guess, and go to the README, this is it. You'll notice that actually a lot of these are in fact I pulled them out. And so if you take out all of the ones that I pulled out, we're really only left with cloud cover and BAMs and GSD. So it makes this a much simpler and much more focused extension as well. It has to do with the EO data portion of it.
We're going to remove the colons and the names of those fields?
For SAT, yes. For any, so yeah, that's a good, so we also talked about, there isn't a specific thing to point to here, but a group of us did talk about extensions in general and core extensions, and we went through all the existing extensions, talked about which ones would make sense to make a core extension, and which ones, and based on two criteria. One would be the maturity level. So when we release a 1.0, a core extension would have to, first off, be stable. That means there's multiple implementations of it, and also that it's a general enough it's applicable to a wide enough audience that it feels like it should be in core. That's sort of a value judgment, but we don't want to put core extensions in where it's like going to be used by a few people. And so the thought right now, the current thinking is that any core extensions would not have prefixes. So that's kind of where we're at. Cool. Any other questions? We're talking about colon.
Yeah, so the sort extension changes have been out there for a while, and we discussed them more thoroughly, including a far too long discussion on the single delimiter character that should be used in them, flipping back and forth. The major changes in this are the parameter is going to be sort by instead of sort to conform to some of the OGC sort behaviors, and we introduced a get style syntax that is not JSON based, as the previous one defined, and that it is simply a common separated list of attribute names, type character, and then a mandatory direction, and then also clarify that the direction is mandatory in the JSON scene also. So those are I think those are all of the changes that went into this TR. Questions?
So for sort by, we now have a kind of a not JSON syntax get, but for every other parameter on get, we still have to use the JSON.
We're working, the field.
Yeah.
I think we're working through making all of them have some alternative format that is not JSON. And what the fields, what else?
Collection fields. Like, I mean, almost anything you have to pass a JSON to it.
Collections and IDs don't.
Also, the collection
What
ID,
IDs, common separated list.
Same with B-boxes, common separated list.
so we have updated it recently.
I think it was, so the B-box one, there was a issue that we went over just recently, and I think we decided that needs clarification within the spec, but it's been interpreted both ways by different people, and that's part of the problem.
Yeah.
And then how about the query part of it?
So query is, that's whole discussion on CQL.
Yeah.
But right now it's not the JSON.
Yeah, I mean, right now, the query, I think the way it's defined is that the only query languages are like custom JSON-based language that was, intended to be like really simple to have something, but that is, I mean, I get the consensus from this meeting that is, something that we're going to deprecate pretty soon and move to the new JSON format or whatever else.
The main thing is we want to make sure there's that whole thing of moving out of that, and we're having, it's the deprecated.
I think the CQL stuff is still enough in progress that there was not a decision made this sprint. We've had a lot of discussion about it, and that sort of conformance class thing that was referred to earlier is going to be really important. So I think at like a bare minimum, we'll probably say something like you need all the comparison operators but nothing else. That kind of a thing for CQL support, and that would replace our current one, almost one-to-one, that like would replace our current stuff.
And then, field is the next one, where field is currently defined to only have the JSON format, so we'll rewrite field to be in a similar way to this, where field has an alternative simple string format.
Tom?
Quick question. On the sort by for get, you see we typically got a colon between the sort property and the sort order. I'm just wondering what the rationale was for reversal of the five things.
Yeah, so I made this change to colon, and then we changed it back. One reason being that we have colons all over the place in our prefix names, which we discussed not doing going forward. It would be up to the extension to define names that they felt were unique, and they could informally prefix them by just saying, like, the name of the thing is eo_foobar, but not requiring that a colonized prefix was on that. And then the second thing was that the specific standards you pointed to, seen as necessarily where OGC is going to continue to adopt that syntax. So we decided that we needed to do something, and that this felt like the better balance between possibly confusing parsers and having issues with having the delimiter be a core JSON syntax piece. Like we wouldn't use a curly brace or that in names of things. So we've seen it using like a comma, okay, but it's well understood.
Yeah, I think the hope is to get this stuff into common eventually, but I think catalog will probably go some of these next and go back and forth between them and what is the next step. So. Cool.
So as part of the query work, we had broken down into a few things. The filter kind of went to a different group, and then we split up for the sorting and talking about how to do paging. So the current spec, there were a few things that we were not totally sure on, like inside the search metadata, we were returning an X key, and then it was required that you use that X key in the URL when going to the next page as part of like a query parameter. And it was also in the link section with a rel of next, and so we kind of recognized that there was it wasn't consistent, and there was a chance for someone to get confused on which one do I use and why. And there was also the interest in aligning with OAF. And the OAF spec is pretty simple right now. They just use the hypermedia next link. And it's a full reference to where the next page is, and you don't have to really think about it. It's like a hyperlink, you click it and you go. So we wanted to adopt that, and that sounds great, except we support post on search, and hyperlinks don't really work with post. So instead of trying to like throw everything out and start over, it was how do we extend what we currently have to support our use case, and there was a proposal to add a few extra keys in the link section. So we're going to extend link to provide the additional information needed to give the client hints on how to do the post operation. And so the example here is we've got sort of two ways to do it. One is you can specify the entire body document and say the client tells the server tells the client exactly what to post, and then there's another one which was to support the large post body format. We didn't want the server to have to pass back the gigantic JSON structures to the client, only for them to turn around and pass them back again. So there was a proposal for a merge operation, which basically says the client needs to maintain some state, they need to know what they spent last time, and we're going to only provide a sort of delta on what they need to merge on top of their last post, so that way the server can reduce the amount of overhead. And this should support all the paging. There was some discussion around paging via headers, there's discussion around paging via offset and limit, and there was discussion around like cursor tokens and a few other ones. And so this is, I think it covers all of them. And so please review and let us know if it doesn't cover your use case.
One question for me, always two options, which option should I do? Like, do I have to get both of that? Is there one that's recommended or default, or are we going to get to one? Or?
So the good news here is because it's doing this link structure, its implementation is giving you an option. So the server developer can make a decision, and the client doesn't have to make a decision because it's telling you exactly what to do. It'll tell you which method to use and how it's constructed for you.
As a client, how do I know if I'm supposed to invoke a post versus the existence of the body?
Scott asked, how does the client see know he's supposed to invoke for post?
I wrote that this morning. This example needs to be updated. There's a key called method.
Yeah, I was wondering about the two different options too, like, you okay with like putting that, the requirement on the client to say, look, this is just the delta, these are the updated fields, and you always need to resubmit those stuff.
The problem is that we don't only support post search, we also support get search. So if a client comes in with a get search and the implementer wants to just say, here's your next link to your next get search, that should work. So we're not forcing people to switch which method they connect to the server with in the first place. That's the recommendation, because the link section tells you which one you could do, and the implementer could theoretically redirect you. I would recommend, best practices, let's try and maintain consistency with how the client is communicating.
I think lots of progress is already around all the things, the way to type one or not have two options or.
I'll open on a PR to fix the example.
So the intention with this was to add a field to each asset that could be used to describe it in some way that is useful to a user. Right now, there's fields that sort of has possibly been included in the attribute name for the asset, but being able to say, like, this asset is the thumbnail, this asset is the red band, this asset is the metadata, this asset is some other thing, so that you don't simply have a arbitrary text description or rely on the key names, which could change to find assets that have certain meaning. So the corollary, we call it rel, even though it's not really a relation, because that's what Link uses, and it's sort of the same idea that you can programmatically go through the assets and look for a well-known rel name and then pull that out and use it in some way, without having to know exactly what the description of it was, the meaning of it was, arbitrary key that was in the dictionary.
Now rel is not this purpose.
Yeah, it got confused. Oh, yeah, because I didn't update the PR column, but, I'll update that.
Yes. All right, so you changed it to rel.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we were reviewing it and we thought get purpose is not a great name.
Yeah, I thought that was, my understanding when we were having the discussion is that it was like rel.
Yeah, well, it's the same thing. So we looked through the INA rel types to see if any were relevant for this, and none of them are relevant for this use.
Yeah.
And so I kind of think we need something else, but we couldn't come up with something.
Yeah, right. Like I thought purpose. Somebody mentioned archetype.
Yeah, I think that was Matthias. He loves art.
Well, no, it wasn't.
Yeah.
I sort of went back to rel because I was like, I can't think of a better name for this, and sort of people understand what rel means in Link, so it sort of means the same thing here, or at least in how you would use it.
It would be good to put into the README or wherever here, I think, to clarify, like, I see the key names in the assets really for humans. They're going to use that based on their knowledge of the collection, and this is going to be used programmatically.
Right.
Like, making that distinction for, like, why there's two different things that are sort of similar, I think it would be worthwhile.
I do still want lots of examples for each of them of recommendations of.
It'd be great to have a much longer list here.
Yeah, that was, I came up with those three on, and since then, like, I was thinking about the color-related bands, that, like, with Sentinel, you've got 3 different bands that are red in different resolutions. So you could have the rel tag on 3 different things, and then disambiguate them some other way.
Yeah. I also was wondering, you talked a little bit about whether or not it should be an exhaustive list or whether or not it should be a free text field. Because like, I feel a little uneasy, like, we already have a free text field, it's the key name, right? And then you add this, and then, like, are people just gonna start putting in random things, because then it doesn't seem like it serves any useful purpose.
Well, I mean,
This one optional, is optional, so there.
That is optional, so maybe that would be how I would explicitly say, like, don't just put something in here, like, either put in one of these recommended things.
or put it in,
Or
similar,
what?
yeah, similar to
Talking
like,
about those.
yeah, like link rel, like if you use one of the INA ones,
Yeah.
it has a meaning behind it, but you're perfectly well supposed to put in whatever other thing has meaning in your specific use case.
Okay. All right, cool.
Aerial extension. Yeah.
So this is a work in progress extension that's very much in line with the STAC extension, with the goal of redoing the extensions so they're kind of like, I guess, platform level extensions where it's like aerial, which can cover drone, balloon, or an actual plane, and then satellite, and then having more instrument level collections where you can define like, well, I have an EO sensor on this, or whether it's drone or a satellite, or if you like balloon, I have a star sensor, I have S&D, which I really like because it's more conceptually accurate to the way remote sensing works, where your sensors aren't tied to the platform, so you can kind of now define them separately, which gives you a lot more flexibility when you want to ingest some type of data set in the stack. This is work in progress. It's really simple. It just has a couple fields. The goal of this is really to start a larger conversation about what fields should be in an aerial extension. I'm not super familiar with aerial. I've used it a lot as an end user, but I'm definitely not an expert. The stuff that I'd like to have included are historical aerial imagery. It has a lot of specific fields depending on where it comes from, such as roll, grain, film type, and depending on what. There are a lot of different programs like NHAP. There's like USGS, OrthoMosaic, imagery going back to like the 1930s, which have all sorts of weird metadata. So that would be fun going through those fields and trying to complete that all together. The other thing I want to see included is exit data for drones. So the big advantage there is you wouldn't have to read the image down locally to access the exit text, which I think would be cool. And that has a lot. That has like elevation, pitch, yaw, roll, a lot of the stuff that applies to aerial. Yeah, that's the aerial extension. Cool. The other stuff I worked on was starting to build out Arturo's STAC implementation. And I started to, we have about almost approaching 10 million images in the ECL to a STAC catalog, and I started writing the code with iStack to do that, and that's been working great so far, just on a small subset. And then I started to build out the back-end code to keep that updated, kind of following Fred Rico's blog post in January, where he talked about how he was using AWS Lambda DynamoDB to keep the stack updated and do it with pretty high availability.
Question here.
Yeah.
As you're working through the exit tags to decide what should be included, bear in mind the purpose of STAC is data discovery, not to replicate all of that.
Yeah.
Only those things that you really.
Yeah, no, I think just the important ones, like, because exit is really like, there's a lot of exit tags, and I don't have any intention to dump every single exit tag into the extension, but mostly the high value ones, like you want to know how high the airplane or drone was flying. If there was a lot of pitch, yaw, or roll, you probably want to know that. If there are more than 8 or 9 exit tags included, that'd probably be too much. Just kind of narrowing down which ones are valuable to different end users.
Yeah, before somebody asks, so I know somebody will be like, well, you know, we have overlap between the aerial field and that field. And so just to clarify, like, really what the goal here is that, like, it's probably going to be, you probably want to take a look at the SAT field because, like, look angle and some of those, like, viewing geometries are going to be applicable in airborne as well. But the key here is the reason why that they're different, and we're not trying to shoehorn them together, is because those are different communities that will use different nomenclature. for kind of describing the same sort of stuff. So they may not say off-nadir angle, they might use some other angle, and we have to measure it in a different way. And so that's what we really need to capture, is like get to the community and find out like what are those, how do they describe those geometries, rather than trying, because we could easily, right, capture all those geometries in
Absolutely.
our own, field. But,
So you're saying we want to use aerial data, like in Pleasant, so that and have our off-nadir, or you want?
yeah, STAC uses off-nadir because that's what people typically use, but in airborne, maybe there's something else that's more common and they think of it.
Yeah.
With drone, you'd use
Where they measure it differently, like depression angle, right? Depression angle rather than, or they call it elevation angle. And so we want to capture that, even if, yes, you could convert or.
I just wanted to show you do those.
So like constellation, right? Like, yeah, you could say what constellation means to a bunch of drones, but like, it's not, right? So
Yeah.
Let's get to the term that drone people would use for a group of a bunch of drones.
I don't know.
A murder.
So this is the PR for the version extension for the API side of things. It defines the number of endpoints for accessing different versions of records. I use this extension. It works for both collections and items. The idea is that if you start using this extension, then other than seeing the actual latest version of the item, you can also see all the previous versions of an item. They're all going to be linked together. If you also end up using the content version extension, you can also include the version number or whether it's deprecated or not in the record as well. And it provides some recommendations, and actually not recommendations, it actually forces the users of this extension to use a specific route type under the link to basically connect the versions together. For example, every record would have a permanent link, and that is essentially a permanent link to that version of that item. One of the use cases, for example, is that let's say you are referring to a metadata record in your paper and you are looking at version 2 of this metadata record. This would allow you to point, use a link that is specific to that version 2, and even if that record keeps changing in the future, you will still can point to the version that you used, and that would be always available. It also allows you to kind of go back and forth between the versions by traversing the link that is provided in all the items or collections. It can be used without the content version extension, where it provides the version and deprecated fields, but it can also be used with it. And it's also very searchable. Like, if you don't use the extension, you just don't have the version endpoints, and you don't have any versions to look at. If you use it, it will be there. And it also doesn't care how you implement it. So, like, database, you need the version, but I don't know, use the object version, or however you might. Any questions?
It's hemorrhage.
Yeah, so this one was kind of in line with the core extension that Matt was talking about. We're allowing start and end date time ranges into items. Use case for this is something like Moses' 16-day NDVI product. You can have the normal date time for the center of it. You can also define the beginning and end. Yeah.
Yeah, I can talk to that just for a second. Phil put in the PR, it was based on our discussion, we went through all of the extensions to determine what their level was based on our maturity level. So it's like you have a proposal, and then you have a pilot, and then you have candidate, and then stable, and it's kind of based on implementation. And so then when we were reviewing the PR, we realized that in a lot of cases, like the number of implementations is sort of been determined ad hoc. It's like, oh, yeah, so-and-so has an implementation. All right, that counts. So what we want to do instead is for every extension, there's an implementation block, and we want to be more explicit. When we get to version 1, in order to be stable, we need 3 implementations for each extension. And if it doesn't have it, it can't make it as a core. And they could be private, and that's okay, but we still want, like, the organization that's doing it, perhaps a contact info, along with an example. So it doesn't have to be public, but we want a list of what those implementations are. So if anybody has implementations for an extension, please put them in, because it'll help us really determine what those maturity levels are.
Cool, yeah.
When you say example, what do you mean? Private implementation.
Yeah, so just like an item example that uses the extension, like a metadata record, you could scrub out things that aren't relevant maybe.
And does that need to be in the PR, or like, because someone in the thing is very detailed?
I don't know, I haven't really thought about it, that. I mean, there's an example folder in every extension. So maybe that's the, put the snippet in there, and then link to it, under implementations, link to that. So.
Yeah, I think a lot of that is Genetic fine, but yeah, there's a lot of changes with extensions, and we're going to kind of put them all in. I can talk by one thing that's cool, but yeah, I think we have a plan for maturity, and then, we're kind of grandfathering some of it. We can still likely be stable enough in core, but we can also remove that if they really don't take off in the next bit. Cool. All right, let's shift to implementation. How this list was randomly written.
You guys want to come up as well? On the feature side? Sure. By JCI? So some updates on Hydro API. I'll talk a little bit to the STAC support and OGC API catalog. There was a long-standing item to implement STAC in Hydro API. So we looked at the concept of what a STAC backend would be in Hydro API. So we implemented that in the configuration. So we use Elasticsearch backend as an example of a bunch of that imagery, and we're able to integrate that into the API by reusing the functionality we have for item search and passing that over to what we have for STAC. So that happened a little bit faster than I thought. There's a pull request there, and hopefully on the flight or the next couple of weeks we'll have that in master. And the other item, at least on my side, was the OGC API catalog. But before I get there, for the STAC support, there were involved with some discussion on the filter, with the Angular filter. So there is a slot in Hydro API to handle whatever the TQL or filter JSON will be. So it's not supported yet, but once that activity settles down and what that will look like, then we're ready to implement that. On the OGC API catalog side, there was a CAT 4 working group meeting, standard working group discussion this morning with Chris, Peter, and others. So lots of discussions around granularity and what OGC API catalog is basically now offers as far as the search API, how that compares to STAC. And
And the idea that we came up with in PyGeo API is that PyGeo API is basically a server with a configuration of one-to-many data sets, data sets which are collections. So we wrote a pull request this morning to basically look at a PyGeo API configuration, look at all the collections, scrape all the metadata out of them, and auto-generate a catalog. So the idea there is that anybody deploying PyGeo API with one-to-many data sets, once they spin that up, you'll get a catalog for free. And I think that's pretty powerful, and glad that we had that discussion this morning.
That's cool how you do it.
Yeah, crazy. So the sprint really helped with clarifying a lot of those ideas. I'll move it over to the USDS folks.
Super excited to start really getting into this community and seeing what STAC was, because I was sort of marginally aware, but now trying to know really a much better idea of how STAC can work and how what we're hoping to do is help see how USGS can contribute on exercising STAC outside of the Earth observations aerial imagery space. And we're also looking at really pushing to extend the PyGeo API in a couple different places. One is to end up with a search parameter, a search functionality like what's been discussed with STAC and OGC API features. Exploring having many-to-many features in collection. So a feature could be in more than one collection. Mary is actually working on that right now.
Yeah, I wish I had something to show you all, but my computer went belly up yesterday, and I can't actually make a pull request. So
we're really close.
We're making progress, but I lost a few hours.
And maturing the PostGIS connection for PyGeo API in a number of different dimensions. Talking about the ability to, so collections are sort of a really important concept for us, and wanting to be able to describe collections in a more sophisticated way or more organization-specific ways. So the idea of sort of maybe adding a properties concept to a collection is something I've kicked out there. And also the idea of grouping related collections together. That was proposed as themes of collections, which was in the WFS 3 engineering report. And so maybe getting around the sort of weird idea of collections of collections, instead adding that concept of themes. So a lot of good things happening. One of the lines, I met Renee, which is awesome. We're in the same organization. Maybe we should work together. We're going to try to figure out ways that Water Mission Area and ARIS and Landsat can be actually integrating our data systems in ways via STAC. And right now it's a link. We haven't figured out how to make our weird, in theory, public code repository public, but we're going to get there.
Questions?
Yeah, so in STAC, right, you can have properties at the collection level to group together these common properties.
Yep.
So have you thought about how this works for search? This is not straightforward. This is complicated.
It is.
Because how do you search? You want to search on some field, but it's actually at the collection level. It's not in your item. But you want to return that item. And so, how would that work here? So in SAT API, we actually ended up just hunting that whole issue, and we merge, when you ingest, we merge the collection properties in with the item. So what's returned is actually redundant information. It is. And it's valid, right? That's fine. And it sounds cool that it would be good as an option to be able to have a user do that, but it'd also be nice to not necessarily have to do it. Sean solved the problem by actually having collection properties stored separately, so it's still denormalized, so it's better searching, but then they're not returned. So
I'm not sure yet. We're gonna have to find out how that, we'll have to think about what that means for search. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think part of this actually hits on some of what we talked about, for catalog, like the notion that, like, it is like catalog should be collection stuff. You really, we're thinking about almost static, like, catalog record that would be a collection plus additional properties. I don't think we actually settled if we need properties or not, but that we sort of need, like, more that you would add at the collection level. And there would be, then basically, if we dealt with more, would be that core. But then I think it should be acceptable to say, hey, you want to put your metadata about your collection. Right. Here's how you do it, so.
Collection level search.
Yeah, I mean, you could either have a collection level search, you could say, hey, users want both, just present either items or collections. You know, there's a variety of different ways to do it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Figure it out.
You'll always good.
Franklin.
Yes. So Chris Brown is on for the unbiased anyway. With the cheese from the day now.
Well, I've released my share, Chris.
All right, I'll grab it. All right. Okay, cool. Yeah, so a few of us at Xavier started working on a API implementation called Franklin. It's the first thing that I want to demo that we worked on, it's not listed here, is we uploaded a public label static catalog to ML Hub. So this is a catalog of water features over an AOI in Panama. There's two collections here. One is a collection of scenes, and one is a collection of the labels. So it's browsable. It was created using PyStack and an internal tool we have called STAC Packer. For creating ML data sets. The water features are extracted from OSM data. It's split up into a bunch of cogs, and each cog is from a set of tiled from a set of Sentinel images to remove cloudy images. Let's find some labels. So here's a label. Don't think so. We might be able to put this in geojson.io. I don't know. Yeah, so these are all features. Water features doesn't quite line up with the current mapbox, but it does with the OSM data. So yeah, that's a public data set. Folks can kind of play with it. Be interested in feedback or see what other people can do with it. But it's part of the tooling that we use internally for our machine learning work. So next we worked on a server, an OGC and STAC compliant server. We're calling it Franklin. Kind of two goals here with this is to import any static catalog, including a label catalog collection, and then be able to get started as simply as possible with a single command. Two kind of other goals that we have, and they're maybe not, they're kind of related to ongoing STAC work and some discussions here. First is to enable raster tile layers for collections and scene items. I know there's a work in progress PR for adding tiled assets. So that's something we're kind of interested in adding. And one of the reasons we wanted to build our own is because it's based on GeoTrials and GeoTrials server, and we know we can create raster and vector layers pretty quickly with GeoTrials server. And so we wanted to see if we can build a tool that kind of combines them both. So this is an open source tool. an open source server. There is a GitHub with some issues. This is where we've been doing work. There's also a getter. So if you end up kind of going through the instructions and running into issues, or you want to play with it, we can help debug there. So we got through a bunch of the existing 08.1 capabilities and endpoints. I know like some things are in flux but we're kind of looking forward to updating once some of the PRs get merged. So I have a demo that I can do with this. So first I'll run some migrations here. And then I'm going to kick off an import for importing the data and then start the server while it's importing. So the data that we're importing is actually the Panama data set that I demoed. So we'll start the server as well. So it uses Postgres on the back end for managing the data. And let's see here. Oh, I wanted to point out, so yeah, each build pushes Docker containers up, so you can kind of get started with just Docker run on the latest tag. We don't have any releases yet since it kind of just started, but we'll tag, once we have tagged releases, those will be up there as well. All right, so here's the API. I'd say we're probably about 75–80% of the way there. We're still noticing some bugs and inconsistencies, but most of it's there. So we can go to /stack. So it has the label collection here. It doesn't have all the collections yet uploaded. So we could click on here. So this is the label collection. Has everything you'd expect to be in a collection. Let's see here. Items. So you can see all the items here, feature collection, kind of what you would expect. We build the docs in the server. Part of the framework that we're using, it gets created automatically. So our docs should be consistent and up to date with the actual API. We have the conformance page. But yeah, so we're pretty excited to kind of keep working on Franklin and start integrating it into some of the ML tools and other stuff that we've, that I think Aaron demoed at the happy hour. And a lot of the work that we've done so far has been focused on kind of static work and producing static label sets. And so this is kind of a continuation of that.
Awesome, super great. Questions? I'm curious if you've tried it against any of the clients yet, like OGR,
What was that, Chris?
Have you tried it against OGR or QGIS yet? Or you know that it's not quite there?
No, it's not quite there yet. We were kind of rushing just to get where we are right now, but we have an issue to start testing. We want to test against the OGC features, testing infrastructure, but then also some of the STAC clients as well. Yeah.
Cool. Any other questions? Awesome. Thanks.
So yeah, besides working on the STAC side, on filters and the list of properties and whatnot, I've also put together a implementation of the SQL extension for the Features API. Let me just go full screen. So yeah, the code is now integrated in GeoServer. In GeoServer there is a community module for features API. There is a bunch of community modules for various APIs, not just features. There's also tiles, there's images, there's styles, there's a checkpoint API to get completed change between the latest access to the server and so on. Right, so just have a quick look at API. The API has been extended with the filter and tips-of-lang parameters. And all the links that you have here are live, so you can check them out. That server redeployed a number of times a day based on the latest nightly build of the GeoServer, so it might be off a few times a day. I've extended the conformance class with this XSQL text, which is meant to be a placeholder for a conformance class for the SQL text representation, because that's what I implemented. The JSON ones are still a bit in the air, so I didn't want to use time to implement something that wasn't finalized yet. In order to list the features, the properties that are queryable, I've implemented a queryable source. It's not what we discussed during the sprint, but again, that part is still floating in the air. So I went for what we did in testbed 15, which interactive input document also implemented. This allowed Evan to test GDAL against two servers doing the same thing. One type of queryable that's kind of interesting. So a queryable at the moment has an ID and a type, but what are the types? Again, I based the list on my testbed 15 implementation, but there need to be discussion here. So at the moment we have string, URI number, integer, date, time, boolean, and geometry. I actually had to add geometry because it wasn't part of the testbed 15 experience, because that was based on size only. But for example, for filtering, integer and number probably could be 30 to 1, because you just want to contain operand is numeric, not to use it in calculations, for example. Or if it's a geometry, to use in spatial operand. So that list should probably be amended and probably reduced. This is an example of the output of queryable for a layer, so you get the list of attributes and their type as a JSON document. I worked on implementing a filter capabilities document, which sits at the root just below the landing page. GeoServer support, as usual, pretty much everything under the sun. So it has all the capabilities, which are the basic ones for logic, comparisons, spatial, temporal, but the problem is that we also have like a few hundred functions that you can use in SQL, and that generates a filter capabilities document that's over 3,000 lines. And I'm not even including everything because, for example, I have the sin function, which is a sin mathematical function, and I haven't even included the description of the arguments. It's just name and type, but I also have the description. Could be useful, and it could be put in there. And from this perspective, I mean, GeoServer has all of those, and it would be a pity to throw them away, but it would also be interesting, in my opinion, to start shortlisting a few set of functions which are so common, so useful, that are well known, instead of, you know, going server by server, and one has called it sin last, the other one must sin, and whatnot. So it would be really nice to have some sort of standardization on very common function names, and their behavior and their parameters and so on. So let's have a look at some filtering. I have, you can use that live link if you want. This is the HTML representation of items. This is natural areas, populated places for 50 million. So you get this table, and this is everything. Here I added via SQL test mega city equals 1. Apparently there's such a field in the populated places. and, well, it gives me back all the cities that are mega cities. Then I tried to find every city that starts with O. So we get Boston, Bogota, Porto, and so on. And I mixed it with a bounding box filter as well. So I have the SQL filter, which is just over the name, and then I separate the bounding box, and they get ended. So I get only the cities starting with O in the United States, cluster of O's.
Is this only going to support OAF, or will it support like assets?
At the moment, it's just OAF, but it's just a matter of getting the right contractor to make it support STAC. The usual stuff, GeoServer is a project, not a product. There's no selling, licensing, and investing in it. When someone comes and asks for a feature to be implemented, we do.
Awesome, thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Andrea. Good play. Thanks for coming.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Thank you. Boris?
First I broke a STAC tutorial by moving some files around SpaceNet, so then I fixed it. And I did actually fix something else. And then I also made a STAC catalog for part of SpaceNet, which didn't really exist before.
Cool. Thanks for doing all that. Validation group?
Yeah.
It says pending PR, but I did update it to actual PRs. Somebody overwrote my commit. So what I mainly worked on was it?
PR and STAC.
There's PR on STAC and there's PR on STAC spec. So what I mainly worked on was trying to get the examples in the STAC spec repo to be validated against the schemas that are in the STAC spec repo, so we can kind of just trust that the validation or that the examples are always valid and up to date. So there's a script that brings in a right now, I mean it's work in progress, but right now a branch of PyStack to do that. And kind of just like runs through, and it's a lot of messy code, but it works. And then in PyStack implemented a thing that will take a dictionary that is hopefully a stack object, and then identify it by its object type, like item collection, etc. The range of versions it should be valid for. The common, what I'm calling common collections, because we're going to common extensions, because we're going to split extensions into core and like contrib. So right now it's called core extensions, with common extensions that just have a short name, and then custom extensions, which are a URI to a schema, so you can do custom extensions. And then we plan on putting that into the stack validator as well, to just be able to identify, like, you have some random JSON, you want to validate it against the correct version of the correct schema, so you have to kind of figure that out. And that code is pretty messy. You have to like kind of try to poke at properties and figure out, okay, well, between version 6 and 7 this changed, so you know, this is going to be the version. So just trying to do that once in one place and kind of keep all that spaghetti code into one file. And that's about all I worked on.
Yeah, I set up a CDN for the schemas, and trying to of them say item, some of them say stack dash item JSON. So I'm setting that up a little bit more. And that'll feed it, validate it, stack.
Yeah, and I just did some work in support of these changes to try and make future versions have everything that's validated released to one-to-one the extension. The extension came up because it will be made consistently, so they'll be, the pull request can have a little bit more of an explanation about how X versions should be used. And then possibly renaming some of the files that you're working on.
Okay. Yes, we already talked about this one. That was the data set. And then some other so I was using the STAC library to generate a bunch of training data sets that we have. Those are up on our regular STAC browser. Okay, okay, but what I did was, I did basically the same things that I did to each server, to my server as well, but instead of going with the SQL text, I tested out the one that came up with the JSON user expressions and the one before that the array version of the SQL used. Play it. It should work, but I'm not taking it.
Yeah, I will do a live demo at my talk. I'm on a Zoom. Okay, let me share my screen with you. All right, it's over here. So for this today, I have been working on adding a support for the OGC API feature callback into the code. This code is a geospatial data ETL framework. My focus is on the API, the data API, the snap collection ID, that get all the items from the collection and get a specific item from one collection. So I've been working on two things. First is a quick provider plugin to
to read the features from a collection in a given host, and I also work on an output plugin that expose data set returned from any provider into a single collection service, which applies to the call spec. And then I found a small demo app that I'm going to show right now.
Awesome.
So, in this demo app, it has two providers. One is the OGC API provider that can read a collection from an OGC service, and one is the Access Hub provider. The Access Hub provider is a provider that fetch the data set from Access Hub. It is an open data platform from the Access, and then we have two output nodes here. One output is to export a data set into an OGC API. One is to export a data set as S3 service. So over here, I'm going to demo how to turn a data set from an Access Hub into an OGC service. So for here, I am at the Access Hub, which is a search base where we can search public data set in the Access Online. And for now, I'm searching the feature layer. We have got the first one over here, and then we have to see that this is the data set ID in the hub. I copy that, and this is a pawn data set. And then I have a server running over here. It uses the Access Hub provider, and I just fill in the ID over here. For now, in this route, this data set will be turned into a single collection service. We have collection 0 over here, and when I hit the item route, it should download service, translate it into an OGC service. Which you can see over here, we have the feature collection, we have an array of features, and we have a couple of properties and the links, and also for each feature we have the ID, geometric properties, and the link for the item and the collection itself. Also, in the backcourse, I'm going to demo how to read an OGC service and export it as S3 service. So in this app, I specify a host called JoNet, which is jo.weather.gc.ca. This is an OGC API feature service, and then it has. Then in this route, I am using the OGC API service provider, and it hits the route, it hits the host JoNet, and then it is going to fetch the data set from the collection, the hydrometric monthly mean, and then it will use the service output and turn it into feature server, and it has a single layer over here and do a true over here. And fetch and download over here. Now we have turned the OGC service into S3 feature server, and over here we have all the normal feature server property over here, the view over here, and the features over here, all in the S3 compatible form. And with this output, we have also add the query that is supported by the
by the SVHO service, like I can put into the vehicle that I said I want to find the features that with the identifier in this blah, 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 and hit send, and now it will only return the single feature that is identified. So for now, this plugin and this output only support the features in the core spec, but in the future we want to add more support from the extensions like the query and features so that we can have better performance in the output present here. Thank you.
Your share.
Oh, sorry.
I'm more confused than
I think that's Matt. So yeah, I worked a little bit with the team trying to define some of the new specifications for the TQL and the summary properties that we'll be doing, but also took a little bit of time because I had access to all the resources here to finalize some of the OGC support for this new STAC implementation using Postgres that we built. So yeah, it's been, this was great. I didn't know about the Franklin effort from Davia, so this is great. Hopefully we can coordinate a little bit on writing an integration test framework. That's one thing we talked about a little bit too, is trying to build out an integration test framework to do API validations, not to do item validations. So I have some stuff there now that's rough. But yeah, maybe we can, that would be good to put into a common repo and we can do API test validation against everything.
We have a Gitter channel.
Oh yeah?
We have a Gitter channel.
Sweet, I'll get on. Yeah, that looks awesome.
Use the link.
Yeah, I'll also try and put up a blog post about some of this stuff tomorrow. We have one that's coming, but I'll try and provide a little bit. So yeah, this was, you know, I had done some of this work on the side for the past couple weeks, but I was really lacking of support for the STAC and conformance endpoints and everything. And I also just found out today that I had a invalid collections model, so the way that I was exposing the collections endpoint was incorrect. But yeah, now I actually just said that I'm not going to do it now because I don't want to push the PR, but yeah, it should be working cleanly with the OGR clients and everything now. So yeah, we have support for almost everything, but with some little bit of differences. So we're kind of waiting. I wanted to kind of wait things out and see what the outcomes of this meeting was before I pushed along and tried to implement everything exactly as it is in 28 right now. The search extension has semi-support, so instead of using the metadata model from the search extension right now, I'm doing everything just with headers, and so that's something maybe we can look forward to and move things around a little bit in the future. As far as transactions go, I'm supporting kind of all the bulk transaction operators that we talked about, but in a different way, and so this was really great to hear the stuff. I think it really informed me a lot, like what we'll do going forward. I think the transaction stuff that came out this week is the way to go. I think maybe we can have some discussion about how we expose this root endpoint so that we can have transactions across collections rather than a per collection transaction. That's still up for debate a little bit. I think there's some semantic issues to that. Yeah, and then what else do we got for support? But all the other extensions are really supported. So I'll just do a quick demo. Yeah, I'll just
so far, working pretty normally. Kind of stuff a little bit. Yeah, everything's working using conversion points. See if we're working stuff. And then also, if we're going to add additional properties, all this has the default sort. This is all default sort by date. But again, all the sort stuff works as well. We can support multi-query parameters and everything as well. So yeah, I'm looking forward, like, this is all open source now. I'd like to get some contributions from people. I'm not a Postgres expert. I really need help doing queries and performance. Yeah, I'd like to coordinate with the data guys on how we can model some of the STAC data in Postgres a little bit easier.
You just think of Alessandro, who said earlier, it looks like you got transactions and bunch of things. Sam, did you want to?
Yeah, I've got some stuff in there. Good for me. So basically from Tuesday when we started, obviously I was kind of coming from Ordnance Survey, we're trying to make this big move to WFS3 and we have no idea and have built absolutely nothing. So the idea was to come and try and implement just the core. So it might be a bit boring because actually all your conversations are the next level. So I wanted to try and help out, but I was like, I've built nothing to actually implement on top of yet. So part of this sprint was kind of for me to just build out the core services and have something that hopefully going forward I can implement more and more and be actually useful in the conversations. So the first thing I did was actually, Ordnance Survey has a big issue where we have products, not features. So for some reason we have a product called topographic area and topographic line point, which actually relates to roads and buildings and kind of actual features. So I spent the majority of day one writing some horrendous XPath merging code to pull out features from different products to make an actual feature set. So I had buildings, which lines up with the demo, which was nice, because then I realised all my examples were the same. That wasn't on purpose. So yeah, once I've done that, chucked that all into a Postgres database, so I was just going to go simply Postgres, PostGIS, and I was trying to write queries to make sure all the work was actually done on the Postgres layer, so I didn't want to have any code kind of actually building out the GeoJSON responses at any level, which I then realised was quite complicated because there's a load of external stuff like the links get quite hard to do directly from Postgres. So I ended up writing some monster PostGIS queries. Following that, I just built a Spring Boot Java REST API on top. Then I chucked that all into Azure, so app service, Postgres all hosted, and just chucked it all together. And this is what I've currently got. I did have some grand ideas about doing a lot of the temporal stuff, so that fell apart when I realised I had nothing, and it would take me a while. So I did have, well, I still think it's a great idea, but I was going to test out different ways of doing the temporality and implementations of it. So I set up the databases in multiple different ways. So I had an instance where it was the buildings table was just dated and there was multiple of them. I had a table where all the data was in one buildings table that had the history of it. And then what I didn't get to do, which I really wanted to do, was actually have a JSON object in the database, and the schema of that JSON object would have been like building one, and each attribute would have had a timestamp for the element's data. Does that make sense? So if you queried out the database, you'd see building and all the attributes for every single point in history, and then I was going to kind of pull it out into the current, depending on the temporal query. Didn't get to do that. But so the first thing, this is just my endpoint. I've chucked it on the repo there. It's
completely work in progress, but it's basically got the buildings of Southampton, which is my hometown. If anyone ever goes to England, great place to go. So yeah, following the spec, I thought it was quite straightforward. Really nice to have kind of the simplicity in the core and not what it used to be like in WFS 2, where you wouldn't have been able to implement most of it in kind of a few days. So yeah, it's just a live link. I implemented the items on buildings, and I've done limits and what is that going. So yeah, you can bring back your buildings. This is all to spec. I haven't hooked up with the actual testers yet because I'm pretty sure my Open API spec is wrong, so it won't work yet. But when I've changed the documentation, I think it will work because all of it is conformant. So I implemented spatial and limit so far. I want to do temporal next, but if I just go and pick out some buildings, I just think it's quite nice that literally all this response is being built directly out of Postgres, so I'm not messing around kind of on the server level doing anything. It's all database work. Yeah, so if I just do a quick, yeah, so if I just do a bounding box, let's go build it down. Again, that was nice and easy. The only thing I haven't managed to do is, hook up with one of the UI. So basically, I was just taking the files that were being output and chucking them directly into QGIS to make sure it lines up with the actual data I've got. So that's just a limited response. So yeah, basically, next steps is do the temporality and then try and help out on the other bits now that I've got something to work on top of. So that was it.
Josh, do you have anything you want to say or share?
I think so.
Kado is now fully open source on Planet Labs, GitHub.
Yep, Spring Boot based Elasticsearch Fact supports most. Like I have all the placeholders available for any of the current extensions, so you can build any kind of collection.
Kirk.
I was new to this, so my main goal was to see if I could make a static STAC catalog and items for LiDAR data. So I have a large collection of that, and for the most part, I succeeded in getting that STAC or the catalog. And I'm just starting on to really getting the LiDAR specific information.
Yeah, we are all very excited about it. None of us are LiDAR experts. Who we love started something and then gone to the specifics. So happy to what actually knows what LiDAR should be. It's really awesome. Yeah, we'd love to get that to actual thing. Cool. Anybody else that I missed?
Yeah, I put one up there. I just wanted to put on a note about the new open data set for MODIS NCD 43A4, 11A1 and 13. A1 is land surface temperature and vegetative index. So that's out in a public bucket now, and that is now all the data is in the Strata public STAC catalog that we make available. The code is in open source, but it is free to use and access the query for 43.4, Landsat 8, and Sentinel L2A. The L1C just requires registration, but it's still free. And so this is like public out there. Anybody can use this. And right now it's using a private but available S3 bucket, and we're going to have it indexed against our official public open data set, hopefully in the next few days. So yeah, that's out there. And this is a great example of the aggregations right here, which we'll tackle going forward.
I love aggregations.
Yeah.
Like, you can talk about them, but they are awesome, hopefully.
They are. I love how this looks. This is time histogram and footprint histogram.
Awesome.
Yeah, and like, this is great because you see the seasonality of cloudiness right here.
Awesome. Any
anybody else that I missed that wants to say a few words. And I will do my one actual thing that I wrote up so I can write something. I just kind of wrote up, we talked about the path to 1.0, a group of us of getting STAC to 1.0. So the goal, 0.9 release, 8th of November, so pretty aggressive compared to our last time. So I think it really is get the PRs from the sprint in. We don't fully finish all of them. That's kind of okay, but hopefully we push them all in. The extension tree work, I think, is the big one. Clearly lots of API improvements and aligning more descriptions for the assets, the real stuff. There's many more that we talked through and queries, right? So the big decision is splitting API and core. So after we do the 0.9.0 release, we're going to split the repository, as I described below. Basically, it's going to be the item catalog collection specs are going to be core. They've been pretty stable, like 0.8, one release, didn't touch them. 0.8 actually wasn't a whole lot. I had some stuff with them, but they described the structure and content, so finalize that stability as soon as possible so people can decrease their risk of relying on that. API is a bit more work to do. You're going to have the features API page, so we're thinking that's probably going to follow a few months later, but Holly Ray's also pointed out, like, API implementers also would like some stability. So I think it's just kind of focused first to the core, then the API. So maybe for a beta after that. To split it up, we're going to STAC spec repo is going to fork to STAC API, which is going to be the API spec folder. STAC spec repo is going to remove the API spec folder, and that's going to stay the core. Create a new STAC extensions repo or extension contrib or name TBD for the non-mature extensions and kind of evaluate the extensions, and that's the work we've been doing. So 0.9.0 will, I think, do that main change, and then all the edits, and then the next will kind of do repo split after we get to 0.9.0. And then core 1.0 beta aimed for release by end of January, so 3 months from now, 2 months after the beta. I think we're not thinking a whole lot happens here, but I think it will give us a bit more time to clean up stuff. So I don't think everything needs to be totally perfect for 0.9.0, but it needs to be good enough so we can flip these things. We'll want to move the issues and kind of we did a run at all the issues that were there, and kind of what do we really need to tackle, and I think we actually worked through them yesterday. So that was pretty great. Right, there's more things to do, but yeah, there's API issues, there's extension stuff, so we'll split those up into repos. API 1.0 beta, sort of maybe springish, less of a clear time on that, but yeah, following those after core. And then 1.0 releases, I think we've talked about this a few times, but they're gonna, we need to determine the numbers on this that really be implementation thresholds. So we're going time-based for the beta, and hopefully, our hope is that more people conceptualize, we can raise more awareness of, hey, this is your last chance for us to do major changes, so try this out now, but also for those who have been using it, hey, this is likely what it's going to be, and so if we get a huge surprise from somebody who has a crazy cool big implementation that is just not working for, we need to do some change. So beta lets us go with that, then we'll have a release candidate, and yeah, I think after 0.9.0 we'll discuss what are those thresholds. I threw out, something like billion public records, 25 different data sets represented, X number being public, modalities represented. STAC API will sort of count for the core, but probably going to have additional requirements for that API to go 1.0. And their versions will be sort of decoupled. We're going to use real semantic versioning to call out breaking changes. And then, basically the API is going to have a dependency on STAC core and a dependency on features API. So when either of those upgrade, it doesn't have to upgrade immediately, but to incorporate new things in, then it will need to do an upgrade. So that's our plan. I think we all talked this through and felt pretty good about it. So pretty excited to walk out of here with that. So yeah, I think that wraps it up. Thanks everybody for sitting through a long session, but I think it was pretty awesome to see what everybody's accomplished in a mere really 2.5 days. Yeah, thanks everybody for working hard and coming out and hanging out.
Thank you, Chris. You did a lot of work here.
Cool. And yeah, I think we have the space till
Yeah.
5, 6, whatever they please.
Yeah.
I gotta go pretty soon. I'm sure people will start to drink a lot more, and we have to kind of see how we can migrate to the bar and whatever. Yeah. Thanks, everyone, and we'll see about organizing the next one. Appreciate organizing. Thanks, Nick, probably went well logistics this time. I think next time I'll figure out how to push even more onto other people and help with organizing, because it is still a lot, but it is also still totally worth it to all come together. So, and yeah, if people have ideas for venues to do next one, there's been a few floating around, but yeah, if you're psyched to host, I definitely don't desire anything bigger than this. So, and yeah, I think we'll probably mix up the combo that we either with the airway or just pure STAC and go back to that, or other fun things. So, yeah.
When are we thinking the next sprint would be?
I'm sort of thinking I'd like to see if we can get to 1.0 data without needing a sprint. I think if we're struggling there, I'm really interested in calling like really or staff member sprint where we just sit down and get her done. I also contemplated just putting something out there and getting sponsors earlier, because many sponsors took a long time to like ask earlier, so I might just ask. But yeah, we'll see as my travel schedule, see how this finally goes. And yeah, I think roughly 3 to 4 months. I guess I'm also contemplating, I'm sort of interested in Tiles API, maybe something more focused on that, like some of the OGC thing that we pushing forward. Enjoyed it. So yeah, I'm still up in there and flexible. So cool. Awesome. Thank you, remote. Penny, what you just want to say, what you're working on. Thanks for joining us if you're still there. We appreciated all your pre-work, even if you didn't contribute much, and used your service clearly. Yeah. Amy, thanks for coming. Here yesterday. James, awesome work. Angela, pleasure as always. Thanks, everybody. Cool. We'll wrap it up and I will stop recording. Also, does anybody not want their thing shared if I post this? It's a lot, but I don't think many people are really going to look through all of it, but I think I will try to figure out how to post it, and I'll try to do some write-ups and whatnot. And then, I'm doing the best about this. I'll try to do a tweet to the sponsors to name them, and yeah, like retweeting or making your own tweets, name the sponsors is always appreciated, so the sponsor feels happy and then potential sponsors can see that. So, yeah, I'll try to do that too. Awesome. Thanks everybody.